They called her name over the loudspeaker, loud enough for every cadet to turn. Before the entire unit, Emily Harper was handed a sealed envelope and told to leave the lineup. No explanation, just the cold efficiency of rejection. Someone laughed. "Guess the farmer's daughter couldn't keep up," another whispered. Emily said nothing. She just walked away. But while the Academy erased her record, one file quietly duplicated in the simulator logs. One aircraft, unlisted and untouched, was being readied by the only man who still believed in her. Emily Sparrow Harper stood alone on the tarmac, her short blonde hair ruffled by the wind as she watched the cadets drilling in the distance. At 28, she was older than most recruits, sharp-eyed, quiet, and an easy target. Laughter drifted from the privileged few, those from military families with flawless scores. Captain Bradley Thornton approached, his tone polite but hollow. "We've reviewed your performance matrix. It doesn't meet the tactical criteria under high-stress response." The words followed protocol, but the satisfaction in his voice wasn't hard to miss. As the sun sank behind the hangars, Emily's fingers brushed the tarnished silver pin inside her jacket, her father's. John Harper, legendary crop duster and local hero, had taught her everything about flying before his fatal crash. "You've got the touch, Sparrow," he'd told her. Now that legacy was dismissed by a system that prized pedigree over talent. "Rough day, kid." The familiar voice of Tech Sergeant Danny Brooks broke through her thoughts. The grizzled mechanic, hand-scarred and oil-stained, had always treated her with respect. "Got my walking papers," Emily said flatly. "Apparently, I fail under stress." Danny's jaw tightened. "Thornton's doing. Same way your stabilizer magically recalibrated mid-sim." Emily froze. For weeks, her perfect simulations had fallen apart due to sudden malfunctions. Always explained away. Always timed too perfectly. "Doesn't matter," she muttered. "I've got 48 hours to clear out." Danny stepped in her path. "You're just gonna walk? Let him win." "I fought every day I was here," she replied. "They've made their call." Danny leaned closer, voice low. "What if I told you there's a way to show them what they're losing?" Emily hesitated, a flicker of hope sparking. "I'm listening. Walk with me." As they crossed the tarmac, Danny spoke quickly. "In 3 days, there's a demo for the brass. Thornton's flying the new F-22 prototype. But I've seen you fly, Harper. You've got instincts those Silver Spoon pilots can't fake." He stopped at the hangar door, eyes sharp. "Your father and I served together. I was there when they called his crash pilot error. It wasn't. Thornton doctored the data." Emily's breath caught as Danny's gaze shifted to her father's pin. "You've got 3 days," he said quietly. 3 days to prove them wrong." "I know how you can do it," Danny said quietly, "but it's risky. Career ending for me. Maybe worse for you." The simulator hummed to life under Emily's hands. The controls felt familiar yet thrillingly advanced, every dial and switch awakening at her touch. Danny kept watch at the hangar door while she settled into the pilot seat, heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. "You've got 2 hours," he'd told her. "Make them count." Blue light from the panels washed over her face as she closed her eyes and drifted back to Kansas, to golden wheat fields and the rickety yellow biplane that had been her first classroom. Her father's voice whispered in memory, "Feel the aircraft, Sparrow. Don't just fly it, become it." John Harper had been more than a father. He was her mentor and her gateway to the sky. A grounded military pilot turned crop duster, he'd given her the cockpit instead of a doll for her 12th birthday. The cracked leather seat, the scent of fuel and earth, every detail was etched into her. By 16, she could diagnose an engine problem by sound alone and had saved 3 local pilots mid-flight with nothing but intuition and grit. That talent had carried her to the academy, though no one there cared about a farm girl's trophies. Unverified training, an instructor had sneered when she mentioned her record-setting simulator scores. But Emily knew her worth. She didn't just fly, she understood flight. Now, as the F-22 simulator came fully online, she ran her fingers over the advanced controls. Beneath the tech and weaponry beat the same soul as her father's old biplane, an aircraft waiting for the right pilot. Danny had stolen the access codes himself, risking his 20-year career. "Some things matter more than rules," he'd said. "Your father would have done the same." The training module wasn't for beginners. It was the elite combat test for top cadets. The first runs were brutal. She crashed 3 times during high-speed maneuvers, alarms flashing red. But by the 4th try, her instincts took over. Her hands and senses worked in perfect harmony, reacting faster than thought. By the 6th mission, she was surpassing benchmarks set by the Academy's best. When a simulated hydraulic failure hit at Mach 1, Emily responded without hesitation, stabilizing the jet and completing the mission flawlessly. When Danny returned, security rounds imminent, she had already logged 3 perfect combat runs. "I told you," he said softly as she powered down the system. "You've got the touch, just like your father." "Why didn't you tell me you knew him?" she asked. Danny's expression darkened. "I watched Thornton destroy his reputation. Tried to fight it and lost. The system protected him. But seeing you fly, it feels like a second chance." Footsteps echoed from outside. Danny's head snapped toward the sound. "We've got to move." They slipped out a side door into the cool night, hearts racing. Behind them, the simulator still glowed, its data recording every move she'd made. Above the dark hangar, a red security light blinked silently, bearing witness to everything. Danny noticed it too late. "Damn it," he muttered. "Someone's going to see that footage." Emily felt a chill. "What happens now?" His eyes narrowed. "Now we accelerate the plan. You've got 72 hours to prove yourself, and someone just saw you do it. The question is, who?" The next morning, a sharp knock jolted Emily awake. Lieutenant Mia Alvarez stood in the doorway, her tone clipped and unreadable. "Get dressed, Harper. Hangar 6. 15 minutes. Don't speak to anyone." Then she turned and walked away. So this was it. Discovery. Emily dressed quickly, dread twisting in her stomach. If Alvarez knew, Danny could lose everything. The crisp morning air smelled of jet fuel and dawn. Cadets glanced up as she passed. Word of her dismissal had spread fast. Hangar 6 loomed ahead, smaller and quieter than the main bays. Inside, Alvarez waited beside a tarp-covered simulator Emily instantly recognized. "Close the door," Alvarez ordered. When Emily obeyed, the lieutenant tapped a panel, and the security cameras powered down with soft beeps. "We have 7 minutes before they reset," she said. "That should be enough for you to explain why you used a restricted simulator, and how you broke 3 Academy records doing it." Emily froze. "You saw the footage?" "I monitor all security feeds," Alvarez replied, crossing her arms. "Imagine my surprise when I saw a dismissed cadet outperforming our top graduates. So, explain." "Lying was pointless. Captain Thornton's evaluation was wrong," Emily said steadily. "I've been flying since I was 12. My father, John Harper, he was a pilot before an injury grounded him. He taught me everything. But from day one here, my tests kept failing. Malfunctions, calibration errors, never investigated. I used the simulator to prove, at least to myself, that I belong." Alvarez's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. "That's a serious claim. Tampering with evaluation data is grounds for court-martial." "I know," Emily said. "But it's the truth." For a long moment, Alvarez studied her. Then, quietly, 3 minutes left. "What was your plan? Break in, prove yourself, then what?" Emily hesitated. "I didn't think that far. I just couldn't leave without trying." Alvarez's stern expression shifted to something like respect. "Not stupid," she said at last. "Reckless, but not stupid." She pulled back the tarp, revealing the simulator beneath. "You know this is scheduled for the Pentagon demo Friday? Thornton's big moment." Emily nodded cautiously. "What if," Alvarez said slowly, "instead of walking away, you show the brass exactly what kind of talent he's burying?" The cameras powered back on with a faint hum. Alvarez's voice turned official. "You're restricted to base until discharge, Harper. Comply with all protocols." Then, as she turned to leave, her tone dropped to a whisper. "Walsh uses access code 472 ALMA. He's terrible at logging out." And then she was gone. That night, Emily slipped back into the hangar, using Walsh's code. But before she could power the simulator, a shadow moved behind her. Cadet Ethan Walsh stepped into the dim light, face unreadable. "Figured I'd find you here," he said quietly. Emily tensed, ready for confrontation. "Thornton assigned me to watch you," Walsh admitted. "Said you'd try something before leaving." He held up a small recorder. "Told me to capture anything suspicious." Walsh switched off the simulator and studied Emily carefully. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked wearily. He hesitated, then pointed to the screen. "Last week, you solved a stability issue 3 instructors couldn't. Then your reports suddenly said you failed basic aerodynamics. It doesn't add up." He glanced at her last simulation score. "I've been trying to master that inverted descent for weeks. Thornton says it's critical for Friday's demo, but I can't get the timing right." For the next hour, Emily guided him through the maneuver. As they trained, Walsh's doubts surfaced. "Thornton's been altering your evaluations," he confessed. "I've seen him do it." Then came the blow. "The F-22 for Friday's demo, FX-97, has your father's call sign, Coleman, painted on the side. Thornton specifically requested it. Said it was poetic justice." Emily froze. By the time they finished, Walsh's skepticism had softened into respect. "I don't know what others see," he said, powering down the simulator, "but I see a pilot who belongs in the sky." The next 2 days blurred into secret meetings and late-night sessions. Emily, Alvarez, Danny, and Walsh formed an unlikely alliance. By day, Emily played the part of a discharged officer, packing up her things. By night, she became the pilot she truly was, pushing the simulator and herself to the limit. "You're a natural," Danny muttered once, pride in his tone. Alvarez used her position in security to quietly monitor Thornton's movements. She soon discovered his private inspection of the FX-97, scheduled for the night before the demo. "It's standard protocol," she said, "but it gives him the perfect chance to make adjustments." Walsh frowned. "You think he'd tamper with it?" "Not overtly," Danny said. "He'll tweak performance settings, nothing traceable, but enough to give him an edge." Emily thought for a moment. Could those tweaks be used against him? Danny's slow grin answered for him. Their plan was bold. Alvarez would keep Emily's base access active. Walsh would spy from inside Thornton's circle. Danny would be present during the inspection, ready to record and counter whatever Thornton did. "I can't stop him," Danny told them. "But I can make sure his tricks don't work as intended." The risk was immense, but Danny only shrugged. "Some things are worth it. Your father would have agreed." Using forged credentials from Alvarez and a narrow surveillance gap from Walsh, Emily had a 20-minute window to reach the hangar. Crossing the terminal during shift change was the only danger. One wrong glance could ruin everything. The night before the demo, Walsh reported, Thornton's on edge, snapping at cadets, obsessing over flight paths. "I've never seen him this rattled." Emily wasn't surprised. The demo would decide not just the aircraft's future but Thornton's career. Pressure made him predictable and dangerous. That night, from a hidden vantage near the hangar, Emily watched Thornton inspect the FX-97. For 2 hours, he circled the jet, instructing Danny to make small, precise adjustments. Nothing that screamed sabotage, but enough to tilt performance in his favor. Midway through, Danny clutched his side, feigning pain. "Old injury," he groaned. "Need a minute." The ruse gave him just enough time to record Thornton's changes and upload his countermeasures. When the captain finally left, looking smug and confident, Danny locked up the hangar and strolled off casually into the night. As Danny passed near Emily's hiding spot, he dropped a small object that caught the moonlight, a data drive holding proof of Thornton's manipulations. Across the base, Thornton sat in his office with a glass of whiskey, reviewing security footage. Something felt off. Maybe Walsh's movements, maybe a glitch in the logs, but his instincts screamed betrayal. He rewound the feed, frame by frame, until he saw it, Emily Harper, entering a restricted zone when she was supposed to be confined to quarters. His jaw tightened. "Not this time, Harper," he muttered, reaching for the phone. "Not on my watch." The morning of the demonstration broke clear and still, perfect flying weather. Emily was up before dawn, replaying their plan in her mind. 3 minutes. That was all she'd have to reach the runway unseen. Thanks to Danny's intel, they knew exactly how Thornton had modified the FX-97. minor tweaks to throttle and control response for a competitive edge. What he didn't know was that Danny had quietly reset the systems, masking the changes beneath factory parameters. By noon, the team gathered one last time. Danny looked worn but resolute. "The Coleman is ready," he said, voice rough. "Thornton finished pre-flight an hour ago. Everything's exactly how he wants it, which means nothing is as it seems." Alvarez frowned. Security shift changed. "I'm covering VIP. You'll be on your own after level 2. She handed Emily a badge. "This will get you that far." Danny pressed something into Emily's palm, a set of shining pilot wings engraved John Coleman Harper. "He earned these," Danny said softly. "Found them in his effects after the crash. He'd want you to have them." Emily's throat tightened. The wings weren't just a relic, they were her father's truth, and her reason to finish what he started. At 1,400 hours, the Raptor engine screamed to life. Thornton's team thundered down the runway, slicing into the sky. From the ground, Emily could easily spot the Coleman, her father's aircraft, now flown by the man who'd ruined him. For 15 minutes, she watched Thornton perform with surgical precision. The man was talented, there was no denying it, but brilliance without integrity was just motion, not mastery. At 1,440 hours, Walsh's voice crackled through her comm. "He's setting up for the inverted descent. Stand by." Emily's pulse quickened. This was it, the moment everything depended on. "Maintenance alert triggered," Walsh added. 2 minutes. She slipped through the maintenance corridor, only to freeze as a guard turned the corner. "Ma'am, this area's restricted during demos." Emily crouched by a junction box, speaking fast. "Signal calibration check. Towers getting interference from east sector." She pulled out a multimeter, steady hands selling the lie. The officer nodded and moved on. Heart pounding, she continued to the standby Raptor. As she climbed into the cockpit, clarity settled over her. This was where she belonged. "Tower, FX-93 requesting emergency takeoff clearance," she transmitted. "FX-93, no emergency flight scheduled," came the confused reply. "Identify pilot and code." "Lieutenant Emily Harper, call sign Sparrow. Authorization Coleman, 73, Niner." Static filled the line. Then, silence. Emily's stomach dropped. The override should have auto-cleared. Just as she prepared to abort, a burst of interference jammed the tower, the last of Danny's gifts. When the system rebooted, only automated protocols responded. "FX-93 cleared for emergency takeoff, runway 3. Emily pushed the throttle forward. The Raptor roared, lifting into the endless blue. High above, Thornton was completing the inverted descent, his signature maneuver. Applause filled the control tower. But Danny's countercode was already working. The Coleman wasn't responding as Thornton expected. He fought the controls, masking his struggle beneath practiced precision. Then, as he leveled out, an unfamiliar blip appeared on his radar. "Tower," he barked, "I've got an unscheduled aircraft in the demonstration airspace." The confusion that followed was exactly what they'd counted on. As controllers scrambled to identify the intruder and Thornton's formation reacted to the unexpected contact, Emily seized her moment. With effortless precision, she brought her Raptor into position alongside the Coleman. Through the canopies, barely meters apart, their eyes met. Recognition flickered across Thornton's face, followed by disbelief, then fury. His lips moved in what might have been a curse, but the roar of engines drowned it out. Emily simply tapped her father's wings, gleaming on her flight suit, and offered him a calm, knowing smile. What happened next unfolded with grim inevitability. Thornton, rattled and enraged, tried to reassert control with a sharp maneuver. But the Coleman, restored to factory settings by Danny's careful work, no longer obeyed his custom inputs. The aircraft lurched into an uncontrolled spin, minor, but disastrous in front of Pentagon brass. Emily felt the G-forces drag at her body as she watched him fight the spin. She knew the disorientation he was feeling, the panic, the tunnel vision. For one breath, she hesitated. The man had sabotaged her, destroyed her father's name. Letting him fail would be justice. But vengeance wasn't why she'd come. "Coleman, reduce throttle to 40% and ease 2 degrees port," she transmitted evenly. You're fighting factory settings, not your mods. Silence crackled across the comm then. Slowly, the Coleman steadied. Emily exhaled. Even now, I won't let your ego kill you, she murmured. She broke formation, rolled cleanly above him, and demonstrated the proper recovery maneuver, her Raptor slicing through the sky with controlled grace. Sweat streaked her temples. G-forces darkened her vision. The machine roared and vibrated around her, alive under her hands. This was real flight. This was freedom. Tower, FX-93, she radioed steadily. Captain Thornton appears to be experiencing control issues. Request permission to complete the demonstration sequence while he recovers. A long pause. Then a new voice, deep, amused, authoritative. This is General Michaels, Pentagon Oversight Committee. Permission granted, FX-93. Let's see what you can do. A thrill shot through Emily. This is it. For 10 breathtaking minutes, she flew like she'd been born in the sky, executing maneuvers with perfect precision and instinctive artistry. Below, officials and cadets watched, spellbound, as the dismissed cadet outperformed their star instructor. Thornton managed to stabilize the Coleman, but made no move to interfere. He could only watch as Emily completed the final, most complex sequence flawlessly. Tower, she transmitted, voice steady and clear. Lieutenant Emily Harper, call sign Sparrow, requesting landing clearance. And if it pleases the Tower, I'd like to dedicate this flight to my father, John Coleman Harper, the finest pilot I've ever known. Silence. Then General Michaels again, landing clearance granted, Sparrow. Dedication acknowledged. As Emily guided the Raptor toward the runway, a lifetime of frustration and grief lifted from her shoulders. Whatever came next, court-martial, disgrace, or vindication, she had honored her father in the one place he'd always belonged, the open sky. But the story wasn't over. While Emily landed to thunderous applause, Danny Brooks was already in the briefing room, evidence in hand. Over the next 2 hours, the truth unraveled. Security footage showed Thornton making unauthorized modifications to the Coleman, changes that granted him an advantage but compromised safety. When confronted, his arrogance cracked. They were minor, he protested. Standard practice. Walsh contradicted him. He falsified Emily's evaluations. Said letting someone like her succeed would make the program look soft. Lieutenant Alvarez added more damning proof. Over 5 years, 28 candidates without family ties had scores manipulated. Harper isn't an exception. She's the first who fought back. Finally, Danny delivered the killing blow. He laid a faded incident report before the general. The crash that ended John Harper's career? Thornton signed off on the system. The same modifications he made yesterday. The room fell silent. The truth was undeniable, and at last, so was Emily Harper. Is this true, Captain? General Michaels asked quietly. Thornton's silence was answer enough. Turning to Emily, the general said, Miss Harper, your methods were unorthodox, but you've exposed a grave breach of ethics in our program. Your father's career was destroyed under circumstances that now demand full investigation. Thornton was relieved of command on the spot. His flight was officially logged as compromised by equipment failure, while Emily's was recorded as an unauthorized but exemplary performance. Michaels ordered a full review of cadet records from the past 5 years, placing Walsh on the Oversight Committee, his own chance at redemption. Then the general reached into his pocket and produced a small velvet box. John Coleman Harper was posthumously exonerated last year, he said, opening it to reveal a Distinguished Service Medal. I intended to mail this, but it's only right you receive it in person. Emily accepted it with trembling hands, eyes shining. He rarely spoke of his service, she whispered. I think it hurt too much, being blamed for something he didn't do. These wings weren't clipped by failure, Michaels replied softly. They were buried by silence. Harper's daughter, but as a pilot who had earned her own wings. You made them fly again. 6 months later, Emily stood on the same tarmac where her dream had nearly ended. The dawn sky shimmered gold as F-22s taxied down the runway. Danny stood beside her, pride clear on his face. The lieutenant's bars on her uniform glinted in the sunlight, earned after a flawless probationary period. Thornton had been dishonorably discharged, and under Michael's supervision, The Academy had reformed its entire evaluation system to eliminate favoritism and bias. That afternoon, Emily took to the skies in the Coleman once more. The jet responded to her every touch, dancing through the air with precision and grace. G-forces pressed her into the seat as sweat traced her temple, each movement a reminder of the years of struggle behind her. Far below, officials watched in awe as pilot and machine moved as one. But Emily's thoughts were elsewhere, on golden wheat fields, on her father's voice. Feel the aircraft, Sparrow. Don't just fly it, become it. As she descended from her final maneuver, she whispered, "This is for you, Dad." The Coleman seemed to answer, steady and sure, as its wheels touched down with perfect grace. Emily smiled. She had found her place, not as John,